Hi everybody, Colin Stevenson here again, joined with my hero, John Lenhart. Hi John.
How you doing?
Today's a very special day for me because I get to introduce John as not only the superstar that I know him, but who he is in his own uniqueness. He's good at showing everyone else who they are, but now today we're going to find out a little bit deeper as to who John is. Now today is Administrator Y. Okay, and this is John. So yes, we all love to talk about ourselves. This is just a thing that humans like to do. So I'm going to put John in the limelight here, and I would love you all to listen to John very carefully, and you'll understand so much more about him.
Right. So we've been covering these intangible drivers, and Administrator Y is I'm administrator teacher. My Y is administrator. So what that means is the effect I want to have other people experience is I want them to be in the right relationship or the right spot relative to someone or something else. So the thing about administrators is they don't care about people. They care about the space between things. So one of the things is Colin cares about people, partially because he's compassionate and definitely because he's servers. Servers are very much focused on the needs of others. What happens with administrators is if it's just something, like if Colin says to me, hey, and I'm an administrative teacher, so teach me about this. And it's like, why am I teaching you about this? Just to teach me. I have no energy. I could do it, but I'm not going to enjoy it. Yeah. And then it's like, why am I teaching you about this? And then all of a sudden he goes, well, because I have, a presentation I have to give. And now all of a sudden, guess what? There's Colin, there's a presentation, and there's a space between them.
Yeah.
I love the space. That's what I love. So the minute the space has been created, I have energy. I could help Colin become the president of a company. He could tell people, John loves me. He likes me. Why do you think that, Colin? He helped me be president of the company. I could help Colin be the president of the company and not even like him.
Yeah.
Because I like the opportunity to help him become president of the company.
Yeah.
Now, I could also like him, and I do like Colin, but I don't have to like people in order to help them. And so I love watching, when you watch these TV shows and stuff, and I don't know if you guys have this TV show over there called Parks and Recreation.
Nope.
But in America, there was this TV show, it's no longer on, it's Parks and Recreation. I have a lot of great characters. A lot of characters are definitely not servers. So it's a bunch of, troubled, I see them as troubled middle schoolers. But there's this character called Jen Barkley. She's an administrative teacher. She is me. And she's a political consultant for this person running against the main character, this woman, Leslie Knope. And she comes into town and she's helping this other guy destroy Leslie. And they're like, how could you like her? And she's like, what do you mean? The goal is to get him elected. I'm here to get him elected. She even starts telling Leslie, you should be doing this. She doesn't care about the people. She cares about the game. And that's the first thing to recognize about administrators. Administrators love games. If you know anybody who's got to always be playing a game or sees everything as a game, and you say to them, wow, you just think everything's one big game, administrator. She sees this whole thing as a game, and she'll tell Leslie information to help Leslie campaign. She doesn't care. She sees that, Leslie's here, the campaign's here. Hey, you know what you ought to do? You ought to do this. And they're always suspicious of her. And she's like, what? That's the right thing to do. So that's the first thing to understand about administrators is we care about the space between people, Colin and another person, or Colin and a task. It can come off like we care about people, but we really care about the space.
I love that. Now, just while we're on the subject of Colin, just for a wee minute, just to turn it back, when you are talking about, putting the right thing in the right place, when we talk about me being a chameleon sometimes and being that server, I can notice a need for that. And it might mean that I don't even know the people, and I will come in and do this exact thing that you're talking about. And I don't need to know or like. However, if I do like the person, it can make it either more difficult or easier for me depending on how I feel at that time, depending on the situation.
So that's a really great point, because your compassion server, your server can move to administrator. That's an administrator how, and we'll talk about that another time, but I do want to talk about this, is that you're the one moving them around. As administrator Y, I don't move anybody.
Yeah.
I teach. I give explanation, and I'm hoping you will move yourself. Administrator how is that person puts their hands on somebody and they move them. So compassion people don't want to do that, but they find themselves having to do it. So Jonathan, and you're going to have Jonathan on probably next month or in a couple of weeks with Mr. Lenhart's class. Jonathan plays all 7 of the students in the class. Okay, and he's like you, he's compassion server. Jonathan actually directed all the episodes.
Awesome.
So in order to direct, he had to move his server to administrator. Yeah. So what you just described about yourself is what Jonathan had to learn about himself. Is he's compassionate. He wants to help you be in a better spot. He wants you to help you feel better. But in order to direct all these people and do this episode, he had to move that how to administrator. And it does feel funny for compassion people, but honestly, they're some of the most powerful people organizing events. Like when compassion people become these amazing leaders, compassion server, it's because they move that server to administrator in a moment, and they're able to move people around and people feel good.
Yeah.
Versus we're going to talk about, well, we can talk about right now is we said perceivers. Last week we talked about perceivers, and I said in the school system, the first half of the year, 80% of the issues are kids who are perceivers.
Yeah.
The second, when I get called into a classroom, the second half of the year, I'm going to say 90% of the issues are administrators. So here's what's happened. All year long, the teacher's like, there's something wrong with my class. These kids are getting in trouble, and these kids are getting in trouble. And what do? You analyze. You go into the series of kids, and you go, which one of you kids is causing the trouble? And the teacher spends half a year doing that. And in the second half of the year, the teacher suddenly goes, these kids are causing trouble. And the teacher goes, it's that kid causing the trouble with wait a minute. Why? These kids are in trouble and doing stuff because that kid got them to do it. The kid who's causing the problem is not in with the rest of the kids. He's over there. He's an administrator. So the second half of the school year, when I get called into a classroom, and I'm administrator, I'm always kind of smirky because I'm always looking like, okay, who's the administrator in this room that's called? Yeah, the kids are in trouble here, but there's a kid in this room over here somewhere who's making this happen, sure enough. And it's just the teachers have spent half a year going through everything, and they finally realize it's that kid. And I don't know how that kid is causing these kids to get in trouble. He's an administrator.
No, that just takes me right back a couple of weeks when I spoke to Ed Mabry on the video about storytelling, about God, the devil, and Adam and Eve, and the devil being the trickster and not actually the bad person. The characters in the story. So it sounds like an administrator could be the trickster almost, because they're not actually making them do it, but what they are doing is using their uniqueness, and then other people are just doing it.
Okay, I'm going to put you totally on the spot because, first of all, you just proved you're a genius. Okay, because the devil is an administrator. Why? Okay, so now I'm going to put you on the spot, Colin. Yeah. What do you think how is? How does he do it?
Would it be administrator exhorter? No.
God, exhorter how would be a cheerleader, like, this is awesome, this is great.
Oh, right, okay, yeah, right, okay. So right, okay, I can't think because I'm on the spot. It's put me.
Administrative perceiver.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So I've got
Just saying one-liners. And that's how a trickster works. That's how deception works. We're going to eventually talk about truth, but deception is a right what, which is perceiving. Perceiving is a right what. Look at that. Look at this. Okay.
yeah.
But it's a wrong how and why. And so the way deception works is someone states a right what, and they don't say a how and why. You provide the how and why, then you go running the wrong way.
Yeah.
And the trickster didn't cause it. They just perceived. So administrative perceiver, but you're right. That's the trickster in the story is administrative perceiver. And you go through that. So General Patton was administrative perceiver. If you've ever seen the movie Patton,
Yeah.
every time Patton, like, he's a genius because he administrates all these tanks, he administrates all the stuff, and there's one scene where he's standing up on a Jeep directing traffic, administrating traffic. And Omar Bradley goes, I had to come all this way to find you being a traffic cop. But he was loving it because he's like, I'm administrating. You there. Every time in that movie that Patton got in trouble, he did the perceiver thing. He did what he wanted to do, a what. He didn't have the right how and why. He just did the what. He slapped the guy. At the very start of the movie, he puts his own clusters on. And Omar Bradley goes, you didn't get promoted yet. And he goes, Ike didn't promote you. He goes, Ike's got his timing. I got mine. It's like every time in that movie, Patton gets in trouble, he perceives, he basically does what he wants to do without a right how and why. And every time he's awesome, it's because of administrative. But yeah, he's basically the trickster in the movie. That was awesome. You figured that out.
And it was nice because I was thinking back into school myself. And because I'm compassion, I obviously feel the kid that's doing these things. And I've always picked up on things that there was no explanation for. And then the teacher, and I'm like, I can't believe they just got away with that. And I'm sure that people will now understand, how did they just get away with that? Now, I've not spoken about this enough because it's just literally coming into conversation now. The amount of people that get away with things are administrator Y. And I believe this now, whether it's crime, whether it's in workplaces, administrator Ys can also be very, very lazy, but look very, very busy as well. And there used to be lots in the army when I was in the army. They used to get the administrator and they used to be like, oh, if you do this and you do this, and they got it done a lot quicker, but that person didn't break a sweat. But nobody would notice because they were administrating and they were taking it all, they were lifting it all in. It was amazing how it was done. And I used to sit there and go, this person is doing absolutely nothing. And that would make me upset because I would be feeling the work that these other people are doing and think there was an injustice there.
Wow, there's two big things you said in there. Okay, let's see if I can try to remember both of them. So first of all, the administrator, okay, they're the ones who are doing all the coordinating. And you said that they seem lazy. Okay, they can be the laziest people in the world. So when a administrator slumps and does nothing, the reason why is they lack a goal. One of the ways to motivate an administrator is give them a goal. And here's the thing. You don't even have to give them a goal. You can state your goal. If an administrator, because if an administrator doesn't have a goal, he's just like this. And all it takes is somebody to go, what's your goal? Or to say, you know what my goal is today? And they have energy. So if an administrator doesn't have a goal, then what happens is they're a sack of nothing. Okay. Yeah. I could just be, if I don't have a goal, I'm a sack of nothing. My son is administrator server. And so what happens is he realized he had two older sisters. And when he learned all this information, he goes, Dad, my sisters got me to do everything. Because what they would do is they would say, they'd tell him, they'd ask him if he could do something, and they'd go, and they'd set a timer on the oven. They go, do you think you could do it? I bet you can't do that in 3 minutes. He goes, I wouldn't want to do it, but the minute they set the clock, I had to do it. And he goes, they didn't know this information, but they knew it worked. They found a hack. And so if you want to motivate an administrator, you just have to give them a goal, okay? Mm-hmm. The second point I want to make is actually the first point you made, which is a huge point, is that and I say it this way, the best day in an administrator's life is when they graduate. We say high school here, okay?
Yeah.
But when they're an adult. Because here's the thing, is administrators want to coordinate a group. And until they're an adult, we don't let them coordinate a group. And so if they have to start a drug ring, or if they have to, do something, if they have to coordinate a group of kids in the class to set something on fire or hurt somebody, hey, I have to administrate. That's who I am. And none of you get a chance to administrate. And that's why they get in trouble. So a lot of times when I have, I know parents and their kids are administrators, I'm like, or teachers especially, can you give them something to administrate? A lot of teachers, they don't mean to do this, but the kid says to them, I want to coordinate this, or I want to handle this, and when the teacher goes, no, I'm the teacher, you do this, it's like, okay, that kid has a need to administrate. You just denied them the need to administrate. How do you think they're not going to administrate? You think they're going to stop doing their purpose? No. They're going to administrate something behind your back. And that's why by the end of the year, or by the second half of the year, they're doing something wrong. It's like, isn't there something you can give the kid to administrate? I mean, even it's a task, like emptying the waste baskets. We love to ask teachers, is there something you don't like doing? And then ask the kid who's an administrator, hey, would you, I watched the teacher say to this kid, I put flowers on all the teachers' desks. Could you check to see if any of them need watering? The kid who's the most disruptive kid in the class is now energized, does that, and the rest of the day they feel connected and they're fine. But if a teacher goes, nope, I'm the teacher, you're the student, you don't get to coordinate anything. You just went against your uniqueness. They're going to cause a lot of trouble, and then they're going to end up in, the problem kid program. And when it was really us who was denying that kid. So it's really important, if your kid is an administrator, give them things to administrate. Ask them how to administrate something, because otherwise they're going to just destroy everything.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And do you know, just while you're talking about that and going back to my time in the army, there was quite a lot of administrators in the army. And you would always find that they would always do the best. They would always climb up the ranks quicker. And the reason they would do this is because they were able to get more work done to make themselves look better. Do you know? So if they were on an exercise, they would say, okay, well, I'm not the one in charge here, but if I get you to do this, and then I'll come in at the end because I know you've done that, and I'll be the hero. What actually happens is they'll get the credit for the people that were looking from the outside, and they'll all get praise for it, but that person, because it looks as if they've reached the top quicker. So that happened quite a lot.
So administrators do end up, they do end up moving these positions of authority, because they're coordinating people. But remember, we said, I think anybody can be a leader. However, if doing that job drains you of energy, you can't do it long term. So what you're looking at is you're in the army. You have all these guys, all this equipment, all these logistics, all this stuff. This is an administrator's dream.
Yeah.
And who wants to move all these people and stuff around? I will get energy. So naturally what happens is in the army, these people, they are energized to be in the army. They go the extra effort, they step in and do this, and all of a sudden they do rise to the top. And that's why we see by occupation certain people. Doesn't mean you can't be a leader in the army and not be an administrator, but you're not going to get energy and you're going to have to make all adjustments. We talked about Dave Chappelle and John Mayer. Yeah. They have uniquenesses that are opposite. They have to go through a lot to make that work. So that's why administrators work in that situation. They want to move around. Now, I walk into a lot of these classrooms with these troubled kids. And the thing is that I'm going to say there's very few females in these troubled classes. They're mostly men. And we'll do more talks about the guy's brain and the men's brain. But a lot of these younger females who are in these classes are administrators. So they got 5 thoughts and they're going to move everybody around. Okay. Yeah. And they just they'll start pushing and grabbing and it's an issue. And so I have a speech I give administrator kids. Okay. So and here's what the speech looks like is I'll look at them and I'll say, do you like moving people around? And they like, you and I know about unconscious, and micro expressions. We'll talk about that another time. But they give this big micro expression, like they give a smile within a fifth of a second. Like, wait a minute, like they're under a white light, they're being interrogated. They're like, and then I go, I'm an administrator. I love moving people around. And then they look at you like, wait a minute, is there a recording here? Like, if I admit this, am I going to get in trouble? And I go, I think you're an administrator. And let me share a secret with you. People love being moved around, and it cracks them. They go, and they'll even do like, oh, they'll joke, they'll go, I love moving people around. And I'm like, okay, because their unconscious is going, your unconscious knows your uniqueness. That's where, like, doing these intangible drivers, the reason it gets you so settled is now your unconscious goes, finally, you know you're a compassion server, Colin. Like, your unconscious went, finally you get this. And you're like, oh. So this kid's all of a sudden settled, like, wait a minute, I love moving people around, but it's wrong. It's wrong, right? It's wrong to do that. They don't say that, but that's what they're looking at me. And I say, here's the thing. And it's funny how many administrators play chess. Okay. Chess is an administrator game. I'll tell you, basketball is an administrator game. A lot of guys who are administrators play basketball. There's a lot of moving parts, offense, defense, everything. So I'll say to them, here's the thing. Everybody, if you move people around the right way, they want to be moved around. Everybody will let you move them around one time.
Yep.
But if you don't move them away, they want to be moved, they'll never let you do it again. And Absolutely. I'll say, you're familiar with chess. Do all those pieces on the chessboard move the same way? And they're like, no. I go, people are the same way. Every person is a different type of chess piece. And they all want to be moved a different way. And I say, in general, there's only 7 types of chess pieces. Do you want to learn how to do it? Because I say, here's the problem. If you don't learn how to move people the way they want to be moved, there's going to come a day where no one will let you move them. Is that what you want? And they're borderline crying, because the worst thing, and I'll jump to this. Here's another way you can find an administrator. If there's a group of people and there's one person outside the group, the administrator cares more about the person outside the group than the people inside the group. Because so the administrator, their focus is here. You're like I'll go in a classroom. So that's a class is a group. And if I sit in the back, the administrators, I can tell the kids are administrators because they're sitting there going, well, there's a teacher, that's why I will go into a classroom and sit down. Just to help the administrators, okay, we're all a group, stay forward. Second thing is, administrators hate to be a person outside the group. They hate it. So a lot of times when an administrator has to, like in these kids' classes, they have to go to a safe room and they freak out. If you close the door, it's the end of the world. Administrator would be like, it's just me. This is hell. So administrators hate to be the one outside the group, and they're completely focused on the person who's outside the group. So that's when I say to them, do you want to have nobody to administrate? You're all by yourself. And they're just, they almost want to cry, like, I don't want that to happen. Well, would you like me to show you how to move people around? And they're like, yeah. And I'll say, let's start with perceiver, the easiest one. And there's always a kid in the class who's perceiver. Yeah. And I go, see Ted over there? He's a perceiver. When Ted says something, here's what you say. You go, I see that. And he'll be open, and then you can move around. They're like, okay. And I'll teach you next week. And when I come back, I said, but it's like, that's my speech to administrator kids. It's like, if you don't learn how to move people the way they want to be moved, they are going to resist you. And I'll say this at the end, I go, if you learn how to move people the way they want to be moved, they will come up to you and ask you to move them. And they just look like, that would be the greatest day of my life. People coming up and asking me to be moved around. That's what I'm offering. That's amazing. They're totally unique that way.
That is amazing. Right, okay, so just a quick touch on that, because I know that you probably want to finish up shortly, but I have one thing I would like to say to that, or 2 things, sorry. first of all, I love being outside the circle because I get to look in and feel the whole thing, and I'm big picture as well, so I like to look at the whole thing. That's the first thing. So some of us do like to be outside, not because we're a loner, but because we like to look and feel the bigger picture. The second thing was when you're talking about the administrator moving people the way they want to be moved. Now, on a daily basis, I get Facebook messages, Instagram messages, WhatsApp messages. What should I do in this situation? Now, I am compassion server, so I have to bear their pain to be able to tell them or serve them in a way where it takes the pain away and allows them to move forward freely. Now, some of that server turns into administrator as well, because I have to then just feel the whole situation, split it into segments and say, well, if you do this, this will be this outcome, this could be this, and it's up to you now what you want to do. And they come back and go, that was absolutely great, thank you very much. So what you just said there was absolutely, well, I know it's spot on because it's coming from you, but it clicks so many different ways with my brain, and I'm sure people watching this, it will click with theirs as well. It's amazing.
Yeah, there's so many great, Ed talked about all those characters, and usually, the wise old man will be this administrator teacher. Yeah. He'll be the guy who basically will give you information to move you forward or to move you towards your purpose. So Morpheus in the Matrix, he's administrator teacher. He's like me. He's always explaining stuff. They go on these speeches, but it's to get you to go to a certain spot. If you ever seen Pulp Fiction, Jules is administrator teacher. He's like me, Samuel L. Jackson. He's always these speeches, it's teacher speech, but it's always trying to move somebody somewhere like that. And then, my favorite is Willy Wonka. Willy Wonka is administrator teacher. Yeah. Especially the Gene Wilder version, there's so many great quotes in there that are Shakespeare or poetry. The writer of that movie was amazing because Willie's a very intelligent guy and he knows a lot of information. But the whole thing is he's administrating this group to his chocolate factory, and it's a game. So just remember, it's like the thing to remember about administrators is it's a game. Everything's a game. And so what happens is they get seen as manipulators. Yeah. So what happens is if you see somebody and you go, you know what? You think everything's a big game and all you want to do is just manipulate people, move people around. They're an administrator. That's a perfect, proof that they're administrator. But administrators, if you want to motivate them, explain how it's a game, and all of a sudden they're in. Because they love to play board games, and board games move a lot of pieces. They love to move a lot of stuff around.
No, that's perfect. I love that. Now, on that, I'm going to say thank you very, very much, because I am sure people will have major sparks going off in their head just now, because last week, but all of them, it doesn't matter what uniqueness we talk about. It's enough to make everyone's brain go, and last week with the Perceiver, I've had some great news with one of my friends and their child. They're putting it into purpose just now because they're like, this is so him. We've so not done it, and things are going to improve there. Not that he's bad, but it's just he's now understood, so he can only get better. And this again will do the same, and that is obviously the purpose of us doing it. So thank you very, very much, John. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I will speak to you next week. Yep. Cheers, John.